Hello, thank you for joining Concentra's Telemed webinar. Concentra Telemed is now available in Nevada. Our keynote speakers today will be Ann Schnur, our Vice President of Telemedicine, Dr. Lisa Figueroa, Vice President Medical Operations, National Medical Director Health Information Technology, and National Medical Director for Telemedicine. I will be serving as moderator. My name is Megan Hart, Director of Telemedicine Sales. Ann, you may now begin.
So the first thing I'm going to talk about is what are the benefits of using telemedicine in workers' comp. So first thing is that absolutely is convenience, 24/7, 365 access to care. When we say 365, the sun never sets on our telemedicine product. We are open all holidays, all weekends, regardless. We are always round the clock, have access to care. Rapid connectivity is ease of use, easy to get on with very friendly technology, with very few steps from what a patient has to do when they're connected. Concentra works with all existing nurse triage companies, has worked out workflows with all of them, how to easily get a patient referred to telemedicine and get them connected. We have choices. We can either do it on demand where the patient comes on the platform, or we can pre-schedule a visit where they get a link to click on at the time of their visit. We also see the entire care, lots of our cases that start in telemedicine and end in telemedicine. So the entirety of care was done in telemedicine. No need to leave the workplace, job site, home, wherever for your visit, no transportation issues, less time away from work, your family, etc. We have improved outcomes. All of our clinicians that do telemedicine for Concentra are employees of Concentra, and they're trained specifically in OCMED. We have fewer missed appointments because it's easy to have your appointment or recheck because you don't have to leave wherever you are to have that appointment. Easier, quick access to care. We can prevent worsening of symptoms and repeat injuries with this. And then always an enhanced employee-patient experience and improve morale. Cost reductions, shorten case durations, get people released back, fully released. Emergency department avoidance, that refers to we're always open 365. People don't have to make an emergency department as a choice. And then most importantly, we are compliant with all state, local, and governing bodies of regulation. And before I go to the next slide, I want to point out what that means is that telemedicine first has to make sure that you can do it with the state regs even before you get to workers' comp. And then you have to look at the licensing issues in the state. For every medical board in the United States has rules on how you to get licensed as a telehealth provider in their state. Next slide. So let's talk about the journey and where we've been with telemedicine in Nevada. So if everyone that's on is familiar with Nevada knows that the C4 form has been a challenge and the impediment to doing telemedicine for the first visit, injury visit in workers' compensation. And that is because the C4 originally required for 2 wet signatures, and that was the wet signature of the patient as well as the wet signature of the provider. And if the forms were filled out incorrectly, you can get fined up to $1,000 per incorrect form. So I want to point out that Nevada was never against telemedicine, just had to figure out how to get it solved for with the regulations of how workers' compensation is administered in Nevada to make sure that a quality visit can happen and also can be in compliance. Another hurdle was the restriction on what types of clinicians could conduct telemedicine visits. Go to the next slide. So I want to just talk quickly about where that journey has been. Back in 2018, Concentra looked at doing telemedicine in Nevada and said, you know, tried to figure out with the state of Nevada work comp division of workers' compensation what needed to be done. And at that point, they had agreed that a wet signature was no longer required for a clinician, that an electronic signature would be okay. But we still had to solve for the wet signature of the patient. And the wet signature of the patient, it was difficult because we could send them the form, they would have to sign it, and we would be legally responsible to get it back. We walked through scenarios there and realized that it really wasn't a good employer, patient, or provider experience to try to get wet signatures. So instead, put the efforts in what needed to happen legislatively in the state of Nevada to allow for an electronic signature of the patient. And then, as we all know, COVID happened, which caused governments in all states of the United States to be interested acutely in telemedicine and look at what were the impediments. And I would have to say that probably was very timely in pushing that along. So finally, in 2021, SB 289 in Nevada allowed for an electronic signature on the C4, which was great. And then in October 2021, they gave a new definition of telemedicine. And I know in Nevada, actually telemedicine is referred to as telehealth. So those two things combined paved the way for Concentra to say, we believe we can now offer up a product for new patient injuries in the state of Nevada that will keep everyone in compliance on the C4 and also give another great access to care solution for injured workers. Next slide. So on our journey, I want to point out that we are not just in Nevada. We started with telemedicine in 2017, started in California, and said, hey, we're going to learn about telemedicine, what makes for a good product, and go state by state. And we grew, adding states, several states, sometimes one at a time, sometimes several at a time, going through all the state regulations with both the medical boards, the work comp, talking to payers, employers, et cetera, to make sure that we were in compliance and providing quality care in that state that met all of the requirements to have that done. As you can see now, all the jurisdictions we're in, including Nevada, and very proud of the fact that we've seen in excess of 200,000 visits, gonna cross 300,000 in telemedicine, and feel like we really are the best in class in delivering a quality product in telemedicine as we move across the landscape and just the nuances between state to state of what is required to make a quality visit happen in occupational medicine. And with that, turn to the next slide. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Lisa Figueroa.
Thank you, Ann. As many of you may or may not know, Concentra has 42 plus years of experience in occupational health. And with that experience comes expertise in caring for the injured workers. We focus on outcomes. We have a knowledge and understanding of OSHA recordability, the importance of returning patients back to work as quickly as possible, the state regulations, and we work extremely well within the workers' comp ecosystem. We have a clinical model at Concentra that has proven great outcomes, and we follow that clinical model in our centers as well as in telemedicine. Our telemedicine experience, as Ann has stated, we started in 2017, so we're at 5+ years of experience. We have highly qualified, vetted telemedicine clinicians who are Concentra employees. We do not have 1099 clinicians on Concentra Telemed. We manage the entire case in telemedicine for the vast majority of the injuries. So when a patient presents at Concentra Telemedicine for injury care, we usually see them through the duration. Now, if that case is not progressing as it should, or if symptoms worsen and the patient is not doing well, then by all means, our clinicians will refer that patient for in-person evaluation and care. We utilize a secure, stable video platform with 24/7 support. And we have our clinicians and our Concentra Telemed colleagues documenting in our EHR. So the information that's available through Concentra Telemed is also available at our Concentra centers. That allows for ease of continuity of care for these patients. Patient engagement. Our injured employees need easy access that's convenient for them to get quality care for their injuries. So they can take a visit or have a visit from work, from home, and again, what's convenient for them. They determine what is a private space for them to conduct these visits, and they can do that via their smartphone, a tablet, or a computer. There's no transportation needed to a center, obviously. This is virtual care, so the time spent, well, they would have spent traveling to and from visits is eliminated. So it's ease, it's convenience, and we provide compassionate care with no interruptions. Our telemedicine clinicians are focused on that patient throughout the duration of their visit. The clinicians are always available, as Ann had stated. We are 24/7, 365, and we deliver caring, quality care that the patients know to come to trust in our telemedicine clinicians. We provide effective communication. That communication is to employers, payers, just as that would be if they were seen at a Concentra center. So that communication is identical. We provide the activity status and restriction form, as well as a clinical summary at the end of every visit via secure email to the patients. We also communicate very well with employers who are interested in launching Concentra Telemed. We have a wealth of information, marketing material, employer-focused materials, as well as training information. And Megan Hart will be speaking to that in more detail later in this presentation. So with Concentra Telemed, employees get the personalized quality care that has always defined Concentra. Next slide, please. So we all know that not every injury is appropriate for telemedicine. Those that are appropriate are those relatively minor injuries that patients must see a clinician for, because these are injuries that have occurred at work. They are relatively minor strains and sprains of the upper and lower extremities. They are bruises and contusions, burns that are relatively minor, cuts and scrapes, the work-related rashes, those, if you can imagine landscapers who contract poison ivy while at work, and they need to be seen by a clinician. We see tendinitis, repetitive use injuries, tenosynovitis, so those being carpal tunnel as an example. And an excellent use case for telemedicine is the bloodborne pathogen exposure. So these patients who have been exposed to potentially infectious bloodborne material obviously will be anxious and really concerned, and to be able to easily and conveniently access care and meet with a clinician right there from the work site alleviates much of the anxiety and stress due to these exposures. When the patient is not progressing as they should, as I mentioned earlier, or if there are concerns about a particular injury, those patients will be referred to in-person evaluation. Next slide, please. This slide shows a distribution of the types of injuries that we see at Concentra Telemed. And you can see by far the leading is the upper extremity injuries, then followed by lower extremity. Other injuries, this category, the 2,704, the vast majority of those are our COVID cases that we have seen that are work-related. So those are the COVID exposures as well as documented COVID, and those are the other injuries in OC category. We see quite a bit of lumbar spine injuries. We also see cervical spine injuries, exposures, so these being the bloodborne pathogen exposures I spoke of, and we have injuries of the thoracic and cervical spine as well as the head and face. I spoke about our leading outcomes and our focus on outcomes for these injured employees. Our average clinician visits are 2 per case. The average case duration is 16 days. Now, that includes bloodborne pathogen exposures, and you know those cases can take quite a bit longer. So if you were to remove the bloodborne pathogen exposures, our average case duration for other injuries is approximately 7 days. The percentage of cases recommended for return to work, you look at 86% and think, Dr. Figueroa just said these are relatively minor injuries. Why would we have just 86% in this number? If you remove COVID, because certainly anybody that's been diagnosed with COVID or expected COVID would be taken off work, then that brings that percentage down to 86%. If we remove the COVID cases, that number is 97% and better. So if you look at our satisfaction rates, these are our patients grading us on how we have delivered care to them, compassionately, focused, quality. Our satisfaction rates have consistently been a 4.6 out of 5 or better. These statistics are for year to date, 2022, and year over year, our patient satisfaction rates have been consistently high. So we know we deliver quality care by clinicians that are occupational health trained, Concentra employees, non-1099, who understand OSHA recordability, who understand how important it is to return those injured employees back to work, and we have very satisfied patients in the delivery of that care. Next slide, please. I'm going to now turn it over to Megan Hart, who's going to start with the patient journey. Megan?
Thank you, Dr. Figueroa. So a couple things to think about. My team does a lot of trainings and implementations for employers, payer partners, nurse triage that want to add telemedicine to their program. So a couple things that we always remind them is it is really, really important for an employee to have a location for a private visit if they will be doing their visit at the site of their occupation or where they work. This being because we really want to protect the integrity of the visit for the injured employee. They will be talking through health history, and we don't want them in front of their colleagues in a break room or in a space that is not private. Think about the smart device that they will need to utilize, a computer, smartphone, mobile device with a webcam and microphone. I have employers who have their employees in one generalized population or area where they may put up a desktop or a laptop, and that works really well because the employees have the option to use that resource on site. I have other employers that we've worked with closely that have more of a remote workforce, and so they tend to use more of their mobile devices. The good thing is the employee can go interchangeably between these devices. So if their first visit occurs maybe on a computer at their location of work, and then they want to do their follow-up visit from home from their mobile device, they're welcome to do so. And we're happy to share some of those tips and tricks we've learned over the past couple of years to find what the best solution may be for you and your employees at your locations. An internet connection is required. The website is www.concentratelemed.com. I do want to note it is best used in Google Chrome or Mozilla Firefox. It is also available via mobile web. So what that means is the employee does not have to download the app on a smartphone or smart device. They can simply go into their web browser, whether that be Safari or Google, and type in the Concentra Telemedicine website and have access to telemedicine. This makes it easier for the employee to access telemedicine without having to memorize or find or locate their Apple ID or password. That creates less barriers for the injured employee to have the access to care. Now, the employee will need access to an active email address and password, this being because this is what they utilize to create their account for Concentra Telemedicine. It does need to be consistent to the injured employee. And they do not need to share that email address with anybody because they will use that for recheck or follow-up visits when appropriate. Also being, this is where the employee receives a copy of their activity status report. We cannot physically hand it to them, so we email it to them at the end of the visit. Then they will need a photo ID when the visit starts to confirm they are who they say they are. So there is always 24/7 support as mentioned prior. At the phone number, as you can see in front of you, 855-835-6337 as well. Now, there's a couple different journeys, as we call them, to which the employee can access telemedicine. And working with the employer, we always note whether there is a nurse triage vendor that you currently work with, or we call it employer direct, where there is the absence of a nurse triage vendor. And so we're going to walk you through the scenario where there is an employer direct. There's no nurse triage. We always let the employer know your injury care process should never change if you add telemedicine. You just now have another tool in your toolkit that you can offer the injured employee at the time of injury. Some employers use this scenario for nights and weekends. That way they can avoid the emergency department. Some employers will use this as a 24/7 solution for the appropriate injuries. It is up to you, and we can help you walk through those scenarios. But step one, the employee is injured at work and they report their injury through their standard injury care process to that manager or supervisor. And at that point, that's the contact that would offer them telemedicine. The employee says, yes, that sounds great. There are instructions that can be provided where they'll scan the QR code or type in the website on that computer, smartphone, or tablet. The employee will create the account. That does just take just a few moments. Input name, address, phone number, a little bit of demographic information, and then they'll connect with one of our Concentra care coordinators. The care coordinator is a Concentra colleague who checks the patient in. And at that point, they will get all the necessary information and they get them over to the clinician. The clinician in step 4 will conduct the visit via video, which will include the evaluation, diagnosis, and treatment. They will talk with the patient about their treatment plan moving forward, answer any and all questions about what will happen next in their treatment plan, and then they will send them back to the care coordinator. The care coordinator will facilitate the scheduling of any rechecks, follow-up visits. They'll also send all post-visit information. If the employee does need access to any medication per the type of injury, they'll help e-scribe that over from the clinician and let them know where they may be able to find that medication if it is a little bit harder to find, such as the bloodborne pathogen medication. And then they will check the patient out. At the point of checkout, the employee gets the copy, like I said previously, via the email address that they use to create their account, and the employer will receive all documentation via the Concentra Hub. So if this is something you currently don't have access to as a Concentra employer, please reach out to your account manager, director of sales. They will want to make sure you have access to this Concentra Hub, as that is how Concentra communicates all post-visit information on behalf of the injured employee to the employer. Now, this is the journey, as we call it, nurse triage. We do work with all nurse triage vendors. So if you have one that you currently work with and you don't have telemedicine, we're happy to get that set up with them. So the employee would, like I said, still follow the same injury care, standard workplace injury care process. They will let their manager, supervisor know that they have been injured in step 1, and they will initiate the call to the nurse triage company. The nurse will do the intake and triage as normal, and then determine the level of care that is appropriate for this injured employee. If it is above the self-care first aid scenario and appropriate for telemedicine, the nurse will offer telemedicine. They can offer a scheduled visit at the preferred time for the injured employee, or they can send the employee over, as we call it, on demand, to get into the queue to see the clinician. So the Concentra telemedicine team will send the employee a text and an email if they have a scheduled visit time, with a link to engage at their visit, should they maybe want to do it at home from the comfort of their own home, if that's the scenario that they prefer. Now, if they prefer to do it at the time of the phone call that's been initiated to nurse triage, they would follow the instructions provided by the nurse triage vendor to access telemedicine. Generally, they'll send a link or a text with the information to go to the website. So the employee will then log in again and be connected to the care coordinator, just like in the employer direct scenario, get them checked in. We do use all information that has been provided from the nurse triage vendor, so we don't duplicate efforts when it comes to intake. We get them connected to the clinician for that evaluation, diagnosis, and treatment. Once they're finished with the clinician, they are sent back to the care coordinator. All rechecks, referrals, release from care are then taken care of at that time, and the patient is checked out. All documentation still sent accordingly to the injured employee via the email address and to the contact via the Concentra Hub. So I just want to note, whether you do work with a nurse triage vendor or not, the employee still can access telemedicine as part of your injury care process at your organization, and we're happy to help facilitate that for you all. So just a couple things that I always like to remind the employer when you're thinking about getting started. Communication is key. I cannot reiterate that enough. If you are used to sending out paper information on maybe the employee's paychecks, let them know that telemedicine is going to be available, and they will be offered that now as part of your injury care process. If you have computers or TVs in your warehouse or manufacturing facility and you're sharing what's going on, let them know that telemedicine is going to be on there as well. We do conduct webinars and personalized training, so we are happy to do that as well. We have tons of beautiful marketing material that's available on our .com website that you can utilize so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And we do tailor those instructions personally to your organization. That way they make sense for your injured employees. But definitely think about what device may be working best for your employees. Like I said, if they're all in a concentrated area, maybe having that tablet or computer available would work best. And if they prefer to use their personal devices, they're welcome to do so as well. The cameras are so good on those now. That space for a private visit is key. And then if you have a workforce that does not have access to an email address, how can they obtain one to receive care? Maybe setting up a free Yahoo or Google email address real quick before they access telemedicine would work well. It does not have to be a work-related injury, or a work email address to access Concentra Telemedicine. We actually find that most employees prefer to use their personal email address when setting up their Concentra Telemedicine account. So like I said, tons of resources available on our concentra.com/telemedicine website. There's demo videos that you can share, a couple minutes in length, that are really good to use for training or huddles. There's starter kits, guidelines, and FAQs. And like I said, there are the step-by-step instructions that are available as well that you can provide your manager or supervisors when you're rolling this out as part of your injury care process. So, if you are interested in getting started adding Concentra Telemedicine to your injury care process, you're welcome to reach out to myself. My name is Megan Hart. My email is in front of you, melhart@concentra.com. And myself and my team will get you set up, get you started, provide any trainings that you need, and make this available to your organization. So at this time, I'm going to pass it over to Anna Kleiner, who will facilitate our Q&A.